Ladies and gentlemen, seeking the truth is the obligation of this committee. I can see no point in going further. I have no expectation that Ms. Lerner will cooperate with this committee, and therefore we stand adjourned.
Chairman, I have a statement. I have a procedural question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a procedural question. Mr. Chairman, you cannot run a committee like this. You just cannot do this. We're better than that as a country. We're better than that as a committee. I have asked for a few minutes to ask. What's the big deal? May I ask my question? May I state my statement?
You're all free to leave. We've adjourned, but the gentleman may ask his question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I have one procedural question, and it goes to trying to help you get the information, by the way, that you just asked.
What is your question?
Let me say what I have to say. I've listened to you for the last 15 or 20 minutes. Let me say what I have to say. Chairman, I have one procedural question.
Ms. Lerner, you're released. You may.
But first, I would like to use my time to make some brief points. For the past year, the Central Republican accusation in this investigation.
We're adjourned. Close it down.
Political collusion directed by on behalf of the White House. Before our committee, there's a single document.
Thank you.
For interview one witness, Chairman Eisler went on national television and said that this was the targeting of the president's political enemies effectively and lied about it during the election year. End of quote. He continued this theme on Sunday. If you will sit down and allow me to ask the question, I am a member of the Congress of the United States of America. I am tired of this.
Well,
we have members over here, each who represent 700,000 people. You cannot just have a one-sided investigation. There is absolutely something wrong with that, and it is absolutely un-American.
Hear, hear.
we had a hearing. We're adjourned. I gave you an opportunity to ask a question. You have no question.
I do have a question.
I gave you.
Chairman, what are you hiding?
He's taking the fifth, Elijah.
He continued this theme on Sunday when he happened to appear on Fox News to discuss a Republican staff report claiming that Ms. Lerner was, quote, at the center of this effort to, quote, target conservative groups. Although he provided a copy of his report to Fox, he refused my request to provide it to the members of the committee. The facts, however, do not support these claims. We have now interviewed 38 employees who have all told us the same thing, that the White House did not direct this, suggest it, or even know about it at the time it was occurring. And none of the witnesses or the documents identified any political motivation. The Inspector General, Russell George, told us the same thing. He found no evidence of any White House involvement or political motivation. Instead, the very first line of the results section of his report says that it began with employees in Cincinnati who, I quote, developed and used inappropriate criteria to identify applications from organizations with the words Tea Party in their names, end of quote. Our committee confirmed this fact when we interviewed a screening group manager from Cincinnati. This manager explained that his employees were the ones who first came up with the inappropriate search terms in 2010. He denied any political motivation, and he made his point by explaining that he is a, quote, conservative Republican. I released his entire interview transcript 8 months ago for anyone who wants to read it for themselves. The Inspector General's report also found that Ms. Lerner did not discover the use of these criteria until a year later in 2011. When she learned about them, and I quote again from the report, Ms. Lerner, quote, immediately directed that the criteria be changed, end of quote. Mr. George's chief investigator also reviewed more than 5,000 500 emails from IRS employees, and again, found no evidence of political motivation. Over the past year, our committee has obtained hundreds of thousands of pages of documents and interviewed dozens of witnesses. The IRS has spent more than $14 million responding to congressional investigations, but we have identified absolutely no evidence to support allegations of a political conspiracy against conservative groups. What we have identified, however, is evidence of gross mismanagement. Ms. Lerner failed to discover that employees were using these search terms for a year, and even after she ordered them to stop, they returned to using similar inappropriate criteria. And like former IRS Commissioner Doug Schuman, Ms. Lerner failed to inform Congress about what she knew. So I do have serious questions for Ms. Lerner, and I am very disappointed that I will not be able to ask them today. But I do not support the Republican conclusion that she waived her constitutional rights 9 months ago when she invoked the Fifth Amendment. And I do not believe a court would uphold that conclusion. Now, the chairman's gone, but I'd like to ask him a few procedural questions involving having a proffer from her attorney. As I said a little bit earlier, her attorney can proffer, and she loses nothing, nobody gains anything. On February 26th, Ms. Lerner's attorney sent a letter to the committee saying that he met with the chairman's staff last month. At that meeting, her attorney said, and I quote, "The staff asked if I would provide a proffer of the testimony she would give if immunized, and I agreed to do that," end of quote. But that did not happen. As I understand it, accepting the proffer does not grant immunity to the witness. It does not bind the committee in any way. Instead, it allows the committee to obtain information without requiring the witness to waive her Fifth Amendment rights. I was not invited to the meeting last month with Ms. Lerner's attorney, and I have not been included in any negotiations. But it seems to me that the committee loses nothing by accepting this proffer, and in fact, we may gain important information. As a matter of fact, the very questions that the chairman just asked Ms. Lerner, where she asserted her Fifth Amendment rights, those are the kinds of questions that can be answered in a proffer. So I wanted to ask the chairman whether the committee can schedule time, preferably this week, for all committee members to hear the proffer from Ms. Lerner's attorney. And with that, I yield back.
Mr. Ranking Member?
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to note for the record, I find it the supreme irony that the chairman of this committee would unilaterally decide an American citizen has waived her Fifth Amendment right while actually exercising his Fifth Amendment right not to answer your questions on behalf of the minority of this committee.